I think this might be, I might be mistaken, but I think this might be the first time that we've sat side by side in open hearings. Am I mistaken, or?
Great day for America.
Well, I'd like to think so. All right, welcome to our guests and those that are testifying and those who are not. But we appreciate the effort of all of you to join us here today. Today's subcommittee hearing will review the federal efforts, the ongoing federal efforts to protect the public health by reducing diesel emissions. And Senator Barrasso will have about 5 minutes for opening statements, give or take, and then we'll recognize our panel of witnesses, and you'll have roughly 5 minutes for your opening statements. If you go a little beyond that, that's okay. If you go way beyond that, that's not okay. So, but your entire statements will be made part of the records, and we'll have a couple of rounds of questions after that. We just had our last vote of the day, and I saw a number of senators streaming for the exits, and I don't think they were coming here. They were probably smelling, what is it, aviation fuel. So a lot of them are probably heading home by now, but we're here. We're very much interested in what you have to say, and so are other staffs. And a lot of the staffs are actually watching on television. But my colleagues and I were sent to Washington, as I'm often reminded, to govern, to find common sense solutions to the challenges that face our nation. I don't believe that Americans are especially interested in ideas that are Democrat or Republican. They want us to come up with ideas that will work and that we can all agree on to make our country even better. Like I like to say, I think I've heard Senator Barrasso say this, in the end, we're in this together, and we need to figure out together how to get to a better place. But cleaning up dirty diesel emissions provides us with an opportunity to work across the aisle. It's something that we don't do enough these days. And I remember when George Voinovich sat in the seat now occupied by Senator Barrasso, and when he sat in this seat chairing this subcommittee, he one day said to me, you know, we ought to work on reducing diesel emissions in our country. And they talked about how we could get a payoff, I think, $1 for every dollar of investment. We get about a $13 public benefit. And he convinced me in about 5 minutes that this was a good thing to do. And we've had, I think, great success for our country, a lot of bipartisan support for that. And what we're doing today actually hopes to build on that. But our nation relies heavily on diesel power to transport commuters, to harvest our crops, and to build our infrastructure. One of the good things we always say about the diesel engines is that they last a long time. And the bad thing about diesel engines is that they last a long time. Clean diesel engines made today are reaching near zero emissions, but that does nothing for the millions of engines already in use that are going to be with us for 20 years and more. Despite new engine standards, the EPA estimates that there are some 11 million diesel engines in America that are lacking the latest pollution control technology. 11 million. Now, these older diesel engines emit black carbon and toxic particles, which we will hear today cause significant harm to the environment and to our health. Retrofitting or replacing older diesel engines with American-made technology can dramatically reduce diesel emissions. Unfortunately, there are few direct economic incentives for vehicles and equipment owners to retrofit or replace their old engines. And programs like the Diesel Emission Reduction Act help provide the right incentives to clean up our existing diesel fleet. An idea that came from my friend Senator Voinovich, as I said earlier, DERA, is one of the most cost-effective clean air federal programs, and it does indeed provide an economic and health benefit of some $13 for every dollar of monies that are spent. Through voluntary grants and through loans, DERA has reduced deadly emissions, saved lives, and employed thousands of workers who manufacture, sell, or who repair diesel vehicles and their components in each state. It's really a win-win-win situation. The other day, I was getting off the train in Delaware, John, and I was trying to rush to get to someplace on the riverfront, the Chase Center on the riverfront, for this big dinner we're having to honor outstanding school performance, just superior superstar performance in some of our schools. And I was running out in my minivan trying to get to the event, and I was late, and I didn't want it to end before I got there. And I pulled up, trying to get to the Chase Center on the riverfront, to pull up behind a bus. It was just like stuck in the road right in front of me. The place I needed to turn right was just ahead of the bus, but the bus wasn't moving. And the bus, on the back of the bus, was a sign. And it was one of these Chinese buses, so, you know, where you ride for $5, you can go from Boston to Philadelphia, wherever. Got right behind this bus, sitting there. When I'm waiting for this bus to turn, hoping it'll turn before the light turns red. But I was sitting there behind the bus, and there's a diesel bus, and there's a sign on the back of the bus, and the sign said, "Double happiness." Think about that, double happiness. And when I think about what we're doing here with diesel emission reduction, it's really triple happiness. It's really triple happiness. Because one, we can use American technology to put Americans to work. We can end up using something that's already an existing asset, and diesels make it better, and we can reduce emissions and make our American people healthy. That's a win-win-win. It's also triple happiness. Last Congress, we reauthorized the DERA program through 2016. We made some changes to try to improve DERA's effectiveness. Unfortunately, the President's budget for fiscal year 2012 zeroed out DERA funding. And although I appreciate dedication to reducing the federal deficit, cutting such a successful program doesn't make sense. I like to say, if something's not working, then we ought to make it better. If it's not perfect, make it better. And I like to say, as we allocate money to do certain things, we ought to ask the question, can we get a better result for less money? But in this case, with $13 of benefit for every $1 of investment, that's a pretty good return. That's a pretty good return, and it's one that's hard for me to understand why the President would say, no, we're going to zero that program out. It seems counterintuitive. But I'll continue to work with my colleagues, with Senator Barrasso and others, to ensure that this program continues to be funded at reasonable levels. Although a great success, DERA has not been able to greatly reduce emissions from our nation's construction equipment. The bulldozers, diggers, backhoes that build our nation's infrastructure produce some 25% of America's mobile diesel emissions. At risk are children who live near construction sites, computers stuck in traffic, and workers who operate construction equipment. In fact, heavy equipment operators who are exposed to diesel exhaust are 47% more likely to die from a heart attack, 47%. To better address this problem, today I'm introducing the Clean Construction Act of 2011. This common sense approach is simple. In areas of poor air quality, non-attainment areas of non-attainment for 2.5 p.m., federal transportation projects should reduce, not increase, deadly diesel emissions. And the Clean Construction Act accomplishes this goal by requiring just those limited places where they're non-attainment for PM 2.5, but requires that 1% of the cost of a transportation project in a particular matter non-attainment area be used to upgrade dirty diesel equipment. The bill applies solely to particulate matter non-attainment areas where significant air quality problems already exist. Now, some will criticize this bill as diversion of transportation dollars. I understand that. However, I'm going to ask my colleagues to recognize that 1% of the cost of a small set of projects is a reasonable price to ensure that fewer Americans die from diesel soot, and this will do that. In closing, I look forward to hearing from our witnesses. We look forward to hearing from our witnesses today about the health impacts of diesel emissions and ways to get greater diesel emission reductions. We also look forward to working with Senator Barrasso, with other colleagues, to reduce diesel emissions that threaten our communities and our children. Senator Barrasso.